the Cubs this year, Mark. Now, we've heard a lot. This is the first time we've seen the Cubs through here, obviously, but we've heard a lot from a lot of people around baseball about how the Cubs are kind of being a little counterintuitive, and Theo Epstein and in how they put together this club, and they seem to be focusing more on position players over pitchers. Is that too simplistic? And if it isn't too simplistic, I know you've covered a lot of baseball. Can you see this actually working?
I think you summed it up perfectly. And to make a long story short, their fourth pick overall was a catcher that has spent some time in the outfield and caught part-time, but he's a big-time hitter. They could have gone for a pitcher. This guy was projected to go around the middle of the first round, but they thought so highly of his bat, they took him there, and he's produced well so far. As far as big picture goes, at some point, probably soon, they're going to have to address pitching and probably get at least one or two power pitchers to make this thing work. And they haven't made any secrets about it. They're going to address this in the next 18 months, and they have to. I think that's the last missing piece to this commitment they've made.
Mark, we've heard, one of the rumors out there is that there'll be a player for John Lester, which would make an awful lot of sense, considering his, the firsthand knowledge that Theo has with him, and just considering his pedigree. But beyond that, how soon can you see this team moving from a team with a bright future to a team that really is ready to contend? Because again, as you well know, that's a tough division to be in. That's not a division where you're necessarily going to turn things around overnight.
I would think 2016. The reason why I say it is on two fronts. One is the Pirates and the Cardinals have young power pitching, and I think that wins in the end. The Cardinals kind of went through a malaise for 5 months, but they're starting to run away with it, and they have the equipment on the mound to take them farther. The other thing being is that for all the hype of the Cubs, as you know, you still need pitchers that can throw 200-plus innings. And right now, Travis Wood, who's having a miserable year, is their only guy currently in the rotation that has done that. Edwin Jackson, I believe, has done it once, but he's had a season to forget. He's on the DL right now. Jake Arrieta missed the first month. He's the guy who's probably going to do it next, but until you've done it, there's still got to be a question mark there. Then you add some of the younger pitchers they've had. Kyle Hendricks, I believe, is throwing Wednesday. He's had a terrific year, but you got to get to that 200-inning mark, in my mind, before you can really start thinking about contending for a division title.
Mark, with this interleague play, with the Cubs being in Toronto, Blue Jays fans will get firsthand look at this young and exciting core. Now, Rizzo and Castro both hurt. They're not going to see them. But which players should Blue Jays fans really be looking at out of all these youngsters?
I think there's two that come to mind. One is Jorge Soler, who was called up earlier this month. And this guy, I don't want to compare him to Vlad Guerrero, but his swing is similar to him. It's long. It's probably a little more disciplined. He's got a ways to go, but his impact the first 8-9 games has been very impressive. He's a big-time hitter. The other guy who is striking out a lot, but still I think is a very promising feature is Javier Baez. And I'm kind of curious to see how he fares on turf. As you know, there's not many fields left that have artificial turf, but he's played some pretty good shortstop. But I'm kind of anxious to see how he adapts to the speed of the surface. As far as a hitter goes, he's striking out at a prolific rate, but he's shown a tendency after a slow start to get cranking. And I think right now a lot of Cub fans are waiting to see him start producing with power because he's got a prolific swing.
Mark, all these young position players that the Cubs have, who of this group do you think may end up being moved? Either A, because there's another position player coming up, or B, because the Cubs feel it's great. You can address a lot of things through internal development. You can address a lot of things in free agency, but sometimes there may be a deal out there that you need to make. Who would be the guy of this young group, do you think, would be most likely to be moved?
I'm not sure that it would come from this young group. I know people are looking at the shortstop situation. That's another thing Theo has done, is stocked up on shortstops, because he believes, if you can play shortstop, you can play everywhere, and they got some pretty good athletes there, and Baez and Addison Russell, who they got in the Samardzija trade, who's finished up a strong season at Double-A, and Starlin Castro, who's hurt. There is some thought that one of those guys would be moved. I don't think so at this point. If it gets into entering 2016, I would think Castro might be the guy that gets moved at some point. But as far as this young core right now, I'm not so sure it would come from this bunch. They've stocked up recently on outfielders. Billy McKinney's a left-handed hitter they got from the A's. They also have Albert Almora, who was a first-round pick, who struggled a little bit at high A, but they want him to do some things. They had trouble adjusting at first. Finished up pretty strong. I could see them moving one of their high-ceiling, lower to mid-level minor leaguers in order to get a power pitcher. But it's going to take more than just that. But I think they have some depth there.
Is Rick Renteria the guy to manage this team into the 2016?
He has scored some points with the officials in the fact that he's handled Castro and Rizzo, two guys that have coming off miserable 2013 seasons, and they've rebounded very well this year. I think Rick's a pretty positive guy, but at the same time, you want to see these young guys shore up some of the mental errors, as well as, sometimes getting up to speed, managing the game. With some people have questioned the way he uses his bullpen. He's got a lot of power arms down there. They're starting to tap the brakes and back off on guys. I think it's been a learning year for Rick, just getting used to a new organization with new personnel. I think next year would be a better way to judge if he's the right guy for the future. But I think so far, at least in the eyes of Theo Epstein, he's done very well helping Castro and Rizzo rebound.
Mark, do you have any idea right now? We'll look ahead to 2016. What type of team will this be? And by that I mean, will it be? It's obviously going to be an offensive team. Is it going to hit a lot of home runs? Will it have a balance of small ball and home runs, or will it be power hitting and power pitching?
It'll be power hitting for sure. Arguably the best prospect's not up yet, and that's Chris Bryant, who just destroyed the minors with 43 homers and 325 batting average, I believe 110 RBIs, and he's legit. I saw this guy play once in college as a sophomore at the University of San Diego, and you could see then he had all the equipment to be a big-time guy, and I think he's the guy that could end up being the face of the franchise at some point. But the issue is going to be, where does he play? But I think that's the least of their worries right now. They still got to get power pitching, but I think in the end that's what they're going to want, and I think you'll definitely see a big-time lineup, and the question will be how much depth they can have in that power pitching as it relates to the rotation.
We're joined by Mark Gonzales of the Chicago Tribune. Are Cubs fans, have they bought in to what's going on at the organization right now?
They're starting to warm up more and more, I would say, in the last 6 weeks, starting with the promotion of Baez and him hitting 3 homers in his first 3 games, and then Soler earlier this month with an impressive start. Kyle Hendricks, who's 6-1 since being called up around just before the All-Star break. They're starting to see some returns on their investment, and I think that combined with signs of the construction of Wrigley Field, the renovation, I think everybody's starting to get excited right now.
Mark, you talked about Rizzo and Castro both making those comebacks this year. What did they do?
I think in the case of Starling, first of all, he worked out with their strength and conditioning guy in the off season. He was very, very durable until he hurt his ankle last week. I think he showed better judgment in pitch selection. They also let him get back to being what he was before last year. He did seem passive at times and overly aggressive. I think there's more consistency with him at the plate. In terms of Rizzo, he's done a terrific job of just taking what the pitcher's given him. He's improved with runners in scoring position. He's improved against lefties. He's hitting all fields with power. He really did a terrific job until his back stiffened up 2 weeks ago.
Mark, it was good of you to do this today. Thanks so much. I'll see you down at the ballpark.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.